Southeast Asia is awash with writing systems, to an extent that's impressive and nearly unmatched. Of all their signs and symbols, one particular one currently has my attention, an at times diacritic, sometimes letter-like character with a history of deleting sounds. Today I want to follow it throughout Southeast Asia's C scripts? Okay, here's why so many C scripts have it, and why some kept or even extended it, while others deleted the deleter. I thought I knew what I was in for when I challenged myself to learn as many C scripts as possible. Just the bare basics. You and I already met scripts with the same Aksara letter anatomies as these. The tough spelling in one of them is unforgettable. It's no spoiler to say they all trace back to India. And despite that, soon enough, the details overwhelmed any shared sense of anatomy here. So, change of plans. What if I limit myself to the side story of a single mark? Not in every last script, but I did gather photos of texts, inscriptions, and manuscripts. So put your palms together for... That'll make more sense in a moment, but you can pull out your own magnifying glass and inspect them yourself following along in my sources document. A gentle place to begin was Baybayin in the Philippines. Recommended not only but especially if you're coming from an Austronesian language. A few pen strokes in, and already my atrophied Aksara wheels were turning again. It's so streamlined. Every consonant comes with a built-in vowel A, like ba. If you want to write a different vowel, put marks around the letter. B, bu. What if you just want the consonant? Here's baba, babu, but what about Bob? Used to be you couldn't, so you just leave it off. Until in 1620, a Spanish priest printed a book that introduced a mark for writing Ilocano. Simplifying its story, ba turned into a vowel-free b by putting a little cruz below or a longer pamudpod beside. A wearer-downer, I like that name. We'll soon meet other names for this kind of antivowel that deletes, silences, hushes, erases the inherent ah. At first, the people were apathetic, but over time these hush marks became essential and have even spread to other scripts. The vowel eraser isn't a Spanish invention, though. A treasured artifact in Manila's National Museum of Anthropology clues us into its origins. This copper plate bears an inscription forgiving a debt on the 21st of April, the year 900. Pressed into the metal, in a script called Kawi, we see consonants with even more dramatic pamudpod-like marks beside them. They do the same thing, erase the embedded final vowels. This Kawi script isn't local. It's known by another name that points far away, Old Javanese. On Java, the world's most populous island, Latin letters are the day-to-day default. But the Javanese script remains a cultural emblem, an emblem whose ABC song, Hana Charaka, actually forms a short 4-line poem out of its consonant plus all letters. It has aged, matured since that old Kawi inscription into, what a looker. Like Kawi before it, and the related script for Balinese, Javanese script is noted for its ornate looping. The reason why is a connective point mentioned throughout my sources over the years. Lontar, palm leaves. Hands moved tools in circles instead of long lines to write on talipot palms and palmyra palms. Their movements left the perishable physical leaves and became part of each letter's shape. Even the oldest preserved writings on stone copy the delicate curves on palm. Same still goes digitally, like in this wiki article on Javanese script in Javanese script. In line with these otherwise equal height Javanese letters that, even after practice, I'm only starting to tell apart, one dramatic swoop stands out to me. Bangkon, meaning lap, as in when you're sitting. This lap reduces the letter ka to a final k sound. So is it like the antivowel holds its letter in its lap? You're most likely to spot pankon at the end of a thought, sentence, or line. The script doesn't use spaces, and words run together with consonants combined. Back to that later. Javanese and Balinese texts balance out unwaveringly even lines of consonant letters with dramatic modifiers, a practice that obviously separates the two jobs and makes antivowels easy to spot. The Old Kawi was also reshaped into a dazzling variety of scripts to write Austronesian languages around Maritime, Southeast Asia. Whenever Pangkon and friends do appear, they retain the same function, even though visually their laps are rarely as big. Head to one of the few islands larger than Java around here, Sumatra. In the north, here's Ba-ta-ka, and then Batak, with a pangolat beside the final letter. Centrally, here's a shapelier antivowel from the traditional script for Karinchi. A bit more south, a group of scripts uses a small circle, among other marks. And at the southernmost end, it's a simple line. Across in western Java, the Sundanese script puts a 3-looking sign after, though in some of the oldest inscriptions it's like a skewed A. These signs are still all erasing an inherent base vowel, but in ways that perform specific functions within a text. They might mark the first consonant in a consonant cluster within a word, mark a consonant at the end of a word, or a consonant at the end of some clump of text. And those functions will be crucial to distinguish because, as we saw with Javanese, not all scripts use theirs for all three purposes. Some for none. Over to Sulawesi to meet ones who abandoned their antivowel. This manuscript is written in Lontara, fittingly named after those palm leaves. It records a Bugis epic that spans hundreds of thousands of pentametric lines. Syllables, words, and lines end in consonants throughout this work, but those final consonants are just dropped, left off, unexpressed, which was also the Filipino strategy historically, and still is in at least 2 scripts. More ways to shake off a devoweler lurk outside the realm of Kawi and its maritime C-script descendants. See, elsewhere, Kawi's siblings were growing up quite differently in mainland Southeast Asia. Contrast 2 writing systems that preserve early stages of languages from 2 families, both of which continue to be used to this day. The script for Mon and Burmese does use a vowel eraser, this little hook-like semicircle. Different look, same strategy. In Khmer, on the other hand, the corresponding mark fell out of use. Their way to squish vowels? Consonant clusters. Stack letters, one atop another, to show they're read back to back. The first letter deletes its vowel, while a second attaches below. Strings of words, then, all run together with no spaces between them, only spacing between sentences. A fun computing note I can't resist. Encoding-wise, you still actually add an implicit vowel deleter before stacking. This strategy isn't uniquely Khmer. As we saw, Javanese words weren't spaced out either, and yes, it clusters. In fact, the compounded letter takes a pasangan or pairing shape and gets placed below or beside. And of course, if the last thing in the whole sentence is a consonant, slap a pangkon on the end. Erasing and clustering found in one and the same script. Also, consonant diacritics, it's a different thing. The Javanese script inherits and adjusts a small set of marks to flag specific final consonants, like a nasal or r. Anyhow, the mainland. Khmer and the scripts that developed from it took another step for words. Consider written Thai. When Thai words end with a plain, unadorned letter, assume it drops its vowel. This leverages the language to read letters as vowelless by default, depending on position. And that seems true of the assortment of scripts for related Thai languages, without the H, where final consonant letters are just that, final consonants, from Thailand to Vietnam. And when I think Vietnam, I think Austroasiatic languages, a history of Chinese influence, and ink on paper. But one Austronesian language shows off its exchanges with India in ink on palm. In fact, the oldest inscription in any Austronesian language comes from the southern coast, known for more than a millennium and a half as Champa. The Cham script has over time developed the habit of pulling a letter's right leg to erase its embedded vowel and signal a closing consonant, turning ka to k, na to n. So for those who lost antivowels, let me summarize their strategies. Underspelling, overspelling, and a sort of just right spelling, which would also include the deleter keepers. Underspelling unexpressed consonants, as in Bugis, so you, the reader, have to supply sounds from your knowledge of the language. Overspelling, where you write the full letter but ignore its vowel, as in Thai. And just right, maybe there's a better word to bundle these, but that can involve modifying a letter, or clustering second and sometimes even third consonants. As I admitted, the more I stare, the more their idiosyncrasies overwhelm me. Yet in all this ditching and keeping, there are tracks that lead back to a single symbol in a single script. What I've kept calling Pangkon using the Javanese word actually has another, older name that wraps up our journey. We circled the map with scripts, but pinned none to the center, the largest island in the C-script lands, Borneo. In East Kalimantan, standing stones bear some of the earliest inscriptions in the region. They're in Sanskrit, but not in the script it's usually printed in today. It's actually older than that script. Notice the consonant stacking, and notice the curve above letters. That's the virama, literally termination, the region's earliest vowel deleter. Virama evolved into new forms behind the scenes on perishable material, palm leaves, but left a clear trail in stone and metal back to this South India script, particularly associated with the early Pallava dynasty. Scribes then spent centuries amending this script, crafting versions that keep the virama or toss it for other strategies. Its longest journey brings us back to where we started, with a script that had it, forgot it, underspelled words, and eventually regained it and ran with it, greatly increasing its use. That one mark gave us many excuses to indulge in some expansive writing systems history. Thank you over and over to patrons for making this possible, and to you for watching. Stick around and subscribe for more about our world full of languages and cultures.